Lance Hall here for the Metal Pit. Happy to welcome Phil Soussan to the program tonight. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing very well, thank you very much, and I'm really glad that you managed to figure out the pronunciation of my last name because it's taken me about probably decades to figure it out myself.
I watched you pronounce it on a video, so that's what I went with. Um,
Pleasure to
so,
be here. Thanks,
um,
Lance.
I thank you for being here. We're here to talk about an album you're involved with. The group's called Prophets of Addiction. The album is called Face the Music. You played on it, you engineered it, you produced it, you did a lot of stuff on this album.
Yes, I did. I mean, primarily I produced it. That was how we started it. That's how Les approached me with it. And so I came in, of course, to produce it. And Les is a very accomplished bass player himself. But at one point, he turned around and said, "Hey, would you want to play on this?" And I said, "Sure, sure, why not?" He goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, of course, that'd be great." So I got an opportunity to work on both sides of the studio glass, so to speak. So that was
Very cool.
it was
Very
kind of fun. If I made a mistake, I'd run around the other side of the glass and say, "Hey, you screwed up," and then I go, "Oh, no, let me try this," and then keep flying back and forth. But it
the
was no, seriously though, it was fun.
Were there times where you wanted to put your hands around your own neck saying, "You will you play this right?" Like a producer would.
Yeah, it was like, hey, if you can't do this, we'll get somebody else. I mean, you got a problem here or something? You know, I mean, it sounds a little schizo. I used to be schizophrenic, but we're better now.
Oh, excellent, excellent. The first thing I
Or
noticed about
at
this,
least I keep telling myself.
keep telling yourself that, right? The first thing I noticed is of course I'm listening to a digital file
Yeah.
through Apple AirPods, but there's a warm sound of this. There's a vinyl sound that came through with that.
Hmm.
Was that the approach to give it a nice warm sound? Did you use like any type of vintage equipment, anything like that? What were some of the tricks you put into this?
No real tricks. I mean, yes, we do use vintage equipment like real amps,
Yeah.
Um, but as far as it really is just in the approach, and it's part of the production. The production, I think, encompasses two areas. Number one, you want to try to find what the artist is passionate about, what rocks their boat, what they really feel, what they love, and try to bring that out into the recording process. Because honestly, the biggest the hardest thing about production is to create a sound, but the easiest thing about production is that the sound's already there. And a lot of the time, many producers, they don't recognize it, maybe they don't really appreciate it and bring it out, but it's already there. You just have to sort of bring it out. And the second part of the production is, of course, trying to get the actual sonic sound of what's going on. And with regards to that, a lot of it is in trying to capture the feel, as opposed to just trying to. A lot of people think it's about capturing perfection or creating perfection, but when you create perfection, you sacrifice some of the feel about it. I mean, the world is an imperfect place, and that's the beauty of it. So, I think that's really what the essence of production is.
Cool. I
Hmm.
made some notes on the songs. I would love to get some input on it to see if I'm hearing things right or if it's just me.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll try my best here, but I did not write these songs, so if you're going to
Right.
ask some deep questions about some of the lyrical content, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer it, but I'll try.
I'm gonna go to track two with "Let's Get High." Great single.
Yeah.
Um, the bass. I'll give a nod to the bass. I thought it just kind of throbbed on this. The chorus was really infectious, and at the ending, you had that little bit of like sounded like the record was skipping. Reminded me of Crimson and Clover. At the end where everybody else thought the
Okay.
record was skipping.
Yeah. No, I just took I just thought it would be kind of cool to sort of leave the listener in a sort of a bit of a hypnotic state, with that kind of repeated echo thing.
Yeah.
And it worked really well for it. Thank you for the compliment about the bass playing. I mean, a lot of the bass parts, you know, um, obviously I came up with the bass parts. Most of them are are pretty obvious what you're going to play. But there's been two or three songs here where I just suggested that we do something slightly different. Don't ask me off the top of my head because that's going to be a little difficult to do. But we ended up with bass parts that were very unique and worked great with the song. So That's always the fun of
Yeah.
playing. Yeah, but Let's
Track,
Get High is a great song.
yeah, excellent song.
Yeah.
Track three, Slipping Away. The guitars on the chorus, that those guitars in the background sound like raindrops, as
Hmm.
I was listening to them. And then you
Yeah.
got, the keys behind this on the intro of the solo, and then you got more guitars underneath the solo. I put down a kaleidoscope of guitars on this track.
Kaleidoscopic guitars. I like that. I like that. That sounds pretty cool. I mean, I'd buy the album just on that.
Like
It's
how
good.
many?
I mean, again, it's a very emotional song for Les. It's a very personal song to him. I don't think it takes too much, um, analyzing to figure out kind of what it's about. And so we wanted to create something that was fitting. That's another thing as well. You take a song which is an emotional, deep song, and you want to put it on an album, and you have to sort of make it fit with everything else. You can't have it standing out as just a very odd selection of a song that just doesn't fit in in the same group of those songs. So we, you know, that's I think that was a success. I think we did well with it. I think we made it sound like it's part of the same record,
Yeah,
but it's definitely had to, wanted to create a little atmosphere for that song as well.
cool. You led me right into my next question because the next song is Walk the World, and I got my note here. It's a nice follow up. This one kind of woke me back up. Slipping Away is kind of, a little more mellow. This one you got the beat up, and it's are you involved much in the sequencing of the things, or is that more up to the band? Does the producer have any say in that, or how does that work?
Les had pretty much most of the ideas of how he wanted the album sequenced, and he kept throwing me lists. I would sort of shuffle them around and have a listen, and I um, when it's your own record, I think you have a lot more focus on that. So I was just listening to the ends and the beginnings of the next tracks and seeing how they followed on one after the other, which made sense. Um, However, as we speak, I just started mastering this for vinyl, and for
Mm,
vinyl you have different considerations. You can't just throw in any songs you want into whatever order you want because there are some limitations of the actual process.
right.
For those people who are not that familiar with it, uh, if you have a disc, and this is just good. My camera's working now. So if you have a disc that's that big and it's spinning at the same speed, well, if you've got a needle on the outside of the disc, it's going to cover more space than the needle on the inside of the disc. If you stretch that out, the inside of the disc may be this, and the outside one revolution may be this, which means that you have the longer space that you have, the longer a groove, the more dynamic range you're able to put into that record. So usually, what you have to do is have the more dynamic tracks on the outside of the record, and then the less dynamic. Usually, it was always the ballads, and it was always the kind of slightly softer tracks that would go to the inside, and that's just one of the restrictions of vinyl. So that's going to be something Les and I are going to have to talk about. We still haven't got that sequence down yet. So,
Well, I just learned a lot
right.
about music and how it gets put on vinyl. I had no clue.
Oh
No
yeah, there's a
clue.
lot. There's a lot more to it than that as well. But
Yeah.
it's definitely interesting, and it's sadly it's a kind of I want to say it's a dying art, but I think it's nice that it's coming back again because there was so much more musicality involved in making vinyl records, and the whole vinyl record is just an experience in itself. I mean, we don't take a CD and say, hey, let's put a CD on and listen to it from start to finish. But we do that with vinyl records. I
Yeah.
go over to my friends' houses and they have great vinyl collections, and they will literally sit down and say, let's put this album on, and we'll put it on and have it until it ends, and then we'll put another record on.
All right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm glad to see come back a bit.
Yeah, and there's the whole taking the shrink wrap off it, the smell, the looking at the lyrics, the reading everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It
very
was an
cool.
experience, wasn't it?
It was definitely. And my daughter, who is in her 20s, has gotten it back into vinyl now. In fact, I just bought her and her boyfriend a turntable and stuff, and they're into it. They love same deal,
Yeah.
putting it on, letting the record play.
And people are proud of their record collections as well. When you go to somebody's house and they say, "Hey, check out my record collection, my album collection," it going up to a stranger in a bar and saying, "Do you want to see how big my hard drive is?" doesn't have the same effect, does it?
It does not. No. I got a couple more tunes I got to ask you about. You guys covered Maggie May,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
High School Garage Band, and I mean that respectfully. You guys just beat the crap out of this song. I loved it.
it's one of my favorite songs of all time, I think, and Les too. I mean, I think it was Les's idea. It was Les's idea, of course, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Hands down, brilliant. I think we should do it, and we should do kind of a bit of a sort of a brash, attitude, punky version of it, but we should keep all the elements that were in the original song because all of those era of Rod Stewart's songs just had they already had a street element to them. There was like like a street Dickensian street urchin kind of feel about a lot of the lyric writing and stuff. So that was already there. We just wanted to give it a slightly different spin.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. I worked with Rod Stewart years and years ago. I was in one of his videos. I was in Back in Your Arms Again. I think it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I've worked with a lot of his guys and the people who worked with him over the years. And I played this for Carmine Apiece, who of course played with Rod for a long time. He loved it. He
Yeah.
played it for Rod.
That
Apparently,
was my
Rod
other
thought it
note.
was great.
Carmine approved. So,
Carmine approved.
all right, this next track, I'm going to skip down to track 8, Hollywood. Starts out,
Yeah,
I'm like, ooh, country. You started with like this country vibe.
yeah.
Now I'm dying to ask this question to see if I've got it right or wrong. There's this little guitar lick and stuff, and then it goes into like a bass and a drum. The drums are like doom 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 doom, and the bass
Right.
hits. Is that a nod to "Be My Baby" by Ronnie Spector?
It might well be. I think it's definitely a nod to that kind of influence. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a terrific song. We recorded it years ago on one of Les's previous albums, and I'm so glad that we redid it for this record because I think it's one of his best songs, and it's just it's timeless. I mean, I love the whole story behind it. When we recorded it and we got to that part, I just thought wouldn't it be great to have that kind of Motown, little intro to there. So you're 100% right. That's exactly what we were
Cool.
sort of looking at. But
It
I think
took it took me
well,
forever to get it, and then just before you came on, I'm like, holy shit, I think I've got it. And I
yeah,
played it real quick, and I'm like, that's it.
yeah. But a lot of Motown was like that. It was if you
Yeah.
listen to the rhythm section, it was going like
Hmm.
this. Dun, 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 dun. There's usually a tambourine in there as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, and then the other track that really blew me away was Last One in the Bar. I mean, that's better than most country that's out on country radio right now.
Absolutely.
You know, it's got that whole Stones, Dead Flowers kind of vibe.
Totally.
Great tune.
Yeah, and funny lyric too. But
Yeah.
I mean, Les is he's been clean and sober for a couple of decades now. So I think that's you know it's his kind of tongue-in-cheek laugh back to how things. We've all known people like that that might have been him at one time. I don't know. You'd have to ask him. But I think that's one of the things that's funny about it. There's that guy that's last one in the bar, and from his point of view, I can't really tell his story, and I can't really put words in his mouth. But I'm sure he looks back and says, this could have been a dead end road for given a choice. Maybe a lot of people who embrace their sobriety, they might think at a certain point in time, you know, um, that's one of the directions that you could end up in. You
Yeah.
know, so it's definitely, but it's also funny. It's tongue in cheek. I've worked with a lot of people who have had challenges with alcohol and what have you, and it's not a lot of fun for them. I'm very very lucky. I never had that problem going home and just saying okay, you know, bringing the night to a close and going to bed.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't really know what that's like personally,
Right.
but I have seen the effects that it's had on people. So you
Yeah.
know,
Phil, this is a fabulous album, start to finish. I was blown away by it. And like I said, the way that it sounded and everything. Where did you first get started? Were you like a musician into the production and engineering, or did you start out as a musician and then get into? the other side of the glass thing?
Well, no, I started out as a musician. I mean, although way back in the early days, I mean, most people know me from when I was playing with Ozzy Osbourne, and then
Yeah.
forward from that. But prior to that, when I first started out in and around the streets of London, I was very young, and I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I had to also, pay my bills. And being a fairly technical sort of person, I very quickly learned some basic engineering skills, and I would go and work in the nightclubs in London. I used to work at the Rock Garden in Covent Garden. I used to work at Dingwalls. I used to work at the Marquee sometimes, and other clubs all around as a sound guy. And
Mm.
it was interesting. You'd go in there, and maybe 6 or 7 bands in one night, and you didn't have it. You had to dive in at the deep end and very quickly get sound for bands, and then take it down, and then build it back up again for the next band, and do that, rinse and repeat 6 or 7 times a night. And it was a really, really great way to learn engineering skills, and
Yeah.
to learn how to be quick, and to learn how to get sounds very quickly, and how to fix sounds very quickly. So that had always been something I was doing concurrently. Um,
Cool.
when I was working with Ozzy, it was only a matter of minutes before I set up a studio um, in Sharon's offices in London, and wrote a whole bunch of material and demos in there. So that's always been something I've done on the side, is always working
Cool.
studio work. So I love production, I love mixing, I love mastering, I love the whole process. So.
Cool. This is where sort of the pinch me moment comes in. September 13th, 1987, Springfield, Mass. I was in the audience that night for Ozzy with Queensryche opening
Oh yes,
on
that's
the
right.
Ultimate Sin tour.
Yep, it
What a band you guys had up there that night.
was killer, wasn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, my dear beloved best friend Randy Castillo is no longer with us.
Yeah.
He was amazing. He was an amazing, amazing drummer. And with Jake and with Ozzy, it was a terrific band. So many people loved that band, and as did I. I mean, we thought it was just we were doing the best we possibly could at that time, and we felt it. And it was yeah, it was a time. It was
Yeah.
great.
I'll tell you,
And
I was there and it blew me away, just blew me away. So,
that's good. I do remember those shows, I think, because I remember being in Mass. We were in Boston one time, and the bus driver couldn't find a hotel, and was losing his temper. It was about 4:30 in the morning, and he drove over a curb, and I fell out of my bunk, and hurt my back
ooh,
uh, pretty badly. In
yeah.
fact, I still have that to this very day. I
Wow.
got an injury there, so
Oh, well.
that's how I remember Boston. Yeah.
There's one other story I've got to ask you about. I want to hear about you taking Mike Tramp to buy his first Harley Davidson.
Wow, where'd you hear that one from?
It's all on the internet. You
Is it
had
really?
posted a picture, I think, on one of your Facebook pages of you and maybe your wife and Mike, and you talked about how you were. I forget where you were. There were four of you together, you and Mike and two ladies, and you talked about how you had met him and you were great friends, and you took him to buy his first Harley.
Yeah, I was very very good friends with his um, with a lot of the people that we hung out with together, and we became real good friends. And he said to me one day, he said, I need to get a Harley, and I said, oh, you into bikes and stuff? And he said, oh yeah, absolutely. He said, I want to get a bike. It's something I need to do. I need to, And I said, well, a friend of mine, my good friend at the time, Steve Best, owned Van Nuys Harley. And I called up Steve and said, can I bring my friend Mike over, and maybe you can take care of him, and get him what he wants, and take care, show him some love or whatever. And he said, yeah, sure. So we did that. We went over there, we got a bike, and immediately went out riding. And then we would go out riding many times together on weekends. Um, one funny time, we would usually pick where we were going to go ride. And one time we said, well, why don't you pick somewhere? And he said, great, okay. So he picked and decided to go up to Wrightwood. And I don't know if you know LA that well, but Wrightwood is up in the mountains.
Okay.
And it was around this time of the year, so it was fairly brisk. And we were riding, but it was nice and sunny. But by the time we got up there, people were skiing around us. It was just, it's a ski resort. and it was bloody freezing. And so we came back. We kept having to stop every 500 yards and warm up a bit, and then get back on the bikes again. And we sort of made a mental note not to let him tell us that we were going anywhere near a ski resort in the middle of winter again.
Oh, that's awesome. You played with
I just talked to him this morning. It's really funny you mentioned
really?
that.
Oh
Yeah,
wow, that's well.
yeah,
I've had the privilege of interviewing him a couple times. Just a fantastic person to talk to. So
oh yeah,
much passion,
yeah,
for
yeah. He is.
everything. You played with so many people. I want to mention a few names. Just give like a 1 or 2 word synopsis. First word or thought that comes into your mind. And I just picked these out completely randomly. Jolyn Turner,
Ah, God, yeah, amazing voice.
Carlos Cavazo.
Great guitar player and loves cartoons.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Vivian Campbell,
Uh, just classic.
Richie Kotzen,
Uh, Very dear friend and just unbelievable, unbelievable soul in his playing.
thanks. John Waite.
One of my favorite singer songwriters. One of my favorite voices. One of my favorite guys.
All right. How about your own Prophets of Addiction guitarist, Les?
Uh, Les,
Yeah.
Les is just a great songwriter. I've been working with him for 20 years. I've been doing just about everything he does. I've been involved in some capacity, and I do so because I think he's an incredible songwriter. Has a great pop sensibility to what he does.
Mm. I was trying to lead back to the Prophets of Addiction. Once again, the album is called Face the Music. It came out like last October on Brave Words Records. Fabulous, fabulous work, Phil. This is a
Thank
really
you.
great album. I was blown away. Like I said, 11 tracks from start to finish. I was not bored one moment in it.
Oh,
There's no
that's
filler here.
no.
So
I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, and it is if you pull the lyrics out and read through it, there's some real depth to what he writes
mhm.
about, and there's some really interesting material, really interesting songs. I'm glad that we were able to do it justice.
Absolutely. That was one note I had on track 11. Take Me to Your Leader. Great lyrics.
Uh
Fabulous
huh.
lyrics on that one. So,
Great.
been chatting with Phil Soussan here for the Metal Pit, talking about Prophets of Addiction, their album Face the Music.
Mhm.
One more question for you, Phil. This is the fun one. I usually ask a series of fun questions, but we only got time for one, so I'm picking out the one we have the most fun with. If they were to make a biopic of your life, what actor would you pick to play you? And it's your movie, your life. You can pick anybody.
We're gonna pick an actor.
Yep, to play you and to play you in your biopic, the Phil Soussan story.
Gosh, that's a tough one. I'm with no idea. I mean,
Really?
on the one hand, might have to be someone like Peter Sellers because he's very funny and tongue in
Yeah.
cheek. On the other hand, a serious actor, uh, I don't know. Gosh, I
We'll
have
go.
no idea how to answer that.
I think Peter Sellers is a great place to start, though.
That's a good place because there's definitely an element of humor to him, and that's something which was always which is always present. I try to keep that front and center.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Phil, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you tonight. I appreciate your time very much. And best of luck for every project that you work on in the future.
Thank you very much, Lance. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Bye bye.
All right, take care.